Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to today's webinar with the Council of the City of Gold Coast. The topic and expert speaker for the session is brought to you by the Office of Industrial Relations, which is comprised of the Electrical Safety Office, Workplace Health and Safety Queensland, and the Workers' Compensation Regulator. Just to let you know, the Office of Industrial Relations is committed to driving initiatives across the whole scheme that improve safety, well-being and return to work outcomes for both employers and workers. Today's session is a specific initiative of Workplace Health and Safety Queensland, and we'll explore how they implemented the PEforM program. I'm Alicia Bailey. I'm the Manager of Engagement Services for the Workers' Compensation Regulator, and I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. Just before I introduce you to Sharon Vandermaat, our expert presenter for today, I just have a couple of quick tips for you to make the most out of today's session. Just as a heads up, the presentation will go for approximately 50 minutes. At the end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity for you to interact with Sharon and answer and ask questions of her, so we encourage you to make the most of this opportunity. So at any time during the presentation, if you do have a question, please use the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll collate these and answer as many as we can towards the end. A copy of this webinar will be emailed through to you, and it will be available on our website, so feel free to share the resource with any of your networks that you feel may benefit from today's webinar. If you do experience any audio issues, please again use the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen and let us know what your problem is, and we have our IT experts on hand to assist just to make sure that you don't miss out. So with the housework done, let's get straight into it. In this webinar presentation, Sharon Vandermaat, Business and Compliance Facilitator, will discuss how the Council of the City of Gold Coast implemented the PEforM program into the branch, which stands for the Participative Ergonomic for Manual Tasks, and the benefits that have been realised as a result of its integration. Sharon has been managing workers' compensation claims since 1985 before moving into a dedicated safety role in 2003. Sharon has worked for the Council of the City of Gold Coast for 7 years, and prior to that in international and national roles within workplace health and safety. Sharon's roles have been predominantly in maintenance and constructions, with a few years spent in tourism also. So with that being said, I'll now hand you over to Sharon, who will present on the innovative PEforM program.
Thank you, Alicia. Just a little bit about the City Maintenance branch. So City Maintenance is the largest branch within the Council of the City of the Gold Coast. Because of the work we do, we are also the branch with the largest number of worker injuries. Council had already adopted the Participative Ergonomics for Manual Tasks, PEforM program. In our branch, we embraced it and then embedded it further. Council had trained all of its supervisors in the PEforM program. What we decided to do was focus on further upskilling some individuals that had a keen interest in safety and wanted to improve their processes. I'll explain more later about who they are and how they were chosen. The program has been running successfully in the City Maintenance branch for over 2 years now with really great results. Our process has most recently been rolled out to the Gold Coast Water and City Infrastructure Directorates. The program has also been included in the Council-wide Objectives and Targets for 2016-17 as a relaunch, again using the process I've developed. Our Directorate Safety Committee now has a standard agenda item to share PEforM updates. We also have a bi-monthly informal catch-up with just the Directorate PEforM facilitators. What we have found is that there is a benefit in sharing what someone might be doing in, for instance, our parks and landscape crews with, say, our roads and drainage crews. Because we are such a large city, it is sometimes difficult to get together and share information, so this forum gives us that opportunity. So what is PEforM? It is important to understand that PEforM is about focusing on the task and not on an individual. We convey this to our PEforM facilitators during their training, as it is easy to look at what and how a certain person undertakes a task when, in reality, we have multiple teams across the city doing the same task. The PEforM facilitator must be a person that is genuinely interested in making our workplace workplace safer, and someone that is a good communicator and has an eye for detail. A lot of our tasks involve heavy lifting. We needed facilitators that were actively engaged with the workers and ideally part of a work crew themselves, and constantly seeking to find solutions that will eliminate or at least minimise the need for lifting. Just a little bit of an overview of our city maintenance branch. We've got 580 staff. Most of them, approximately 500, are outside workers, predominantly doing a lot of hazardous manual tasks. We've got 4 sections within the branch: roads, drainage and foreshores, parks and landscape maintenance, city cleaning, and our building maintenance branch. So what we do. Parks and landscape, as the name describes, look after mulching, planting, pruning, hedging, knapsack spraying, weeding, whippersnippering, turfing, etc. Our roads and drainage and foreshores crew, concrete screeding, breaking up old concrete, raking bitumen, digging, curb and channel work. And then our city cleaning crews, picking up litter, manually emptying rubbish bins, long periods sitting in a truck, and building maintenance. These are generally our carpenters, carrying and lifting of ladders, crawling through restricted spaces, ceilings under buildings, long periods crouching. So how are we going to identify hazardous manual tasks? We put out a survey to all of our city maintenance staff in January of 2013, asking 3 simple questions. What are the jobs that you go home from feeling a bit sore? What jobs that you do are you most afraid of getting hurt from? And the last question, what are the jobs that you do involving manual handling that stop you wanting to come to work? So just a bit of a look at the results of that survey. The response to the first question, hedging and mulching, came out on top. Activities undertaken by our parks and landscape crews. These activities also align to our workers' compensation data. The second question, again, activities conducted by our parks and landscape crews, came out on top. And finally, the last question results, again mulching and also picking up of pandanus leaves came out in this question. The pandanus leaves are really large strappy leaves that have to be picked up by hand as they wrap themselves around the mower blades. The answer to this one came from the parks and landscape crews themselves. They asked us to stop planting them in the grassy areas of parks and instead plant in the garden beds or on the sand dunes where the leaf fall was not a problem. Our field workers generally nominated the representatives to undertake the PEforM risk assessments. We call them PEforM facilitators. We have 7 in the maintenance branch. Most of them are members of work crews and have undertaken many of the tasks, so they've got a very good understanding of the manual handling involved. Some of them are supervisors, but those that are part of work crews tend to be the most active in identifying issues. So after the survey results were collated, we compared them to the injury statistics for the previous 2 years. This was to prioritise the issues for review. If they were on both lists, they went to the top of the list that was given to the PEforM facilitators. They took their lists to conduct the PEforM risk assessments in the field by observing the task and recording their findings on the body map that is on the risk assessment tool. That's shown a little bit later. Here's a look at our timeline. So in January, February of 2013, we sent out the survey to the staff, and March and April was spent collating the survey feedback. During May and June, we selected and trained our PEforM facilitators, And then in July of that same year, the PEforM facilitators hit the field and begun undertaking the PEforM risk assessments. This slide shows the risk assessment part of the PEforM risk assessment tool. This tool is available on the WHSQ website. The PEforM facilitators are trained to identify the manual task risk factors highlighted on the slide, how to assess the risk, and discuss possible control measures with the work teams. Part of the assessment involves identifying the body parts that are affected and then rating the different risk factors. So scores of 4 or 5 indicate the problem areas where controls need to be focused. This is useful also for re-evaluation as well, so that we can see if the risk has been minimised. The PEforM facilitators lead the discussions with the work group and supervisor on site to assess the task and determine suggested improvements. The proposed control measures are recorded on the risk assessment tool, which is below the body map. They may involve sourcing and trialling of new piece of equipment or a change to a process. The group will generally go through the existing procedure for the task and offer any updates or changes for consideration. In fact, this is a very good way to review the procedures to ensure that they are accurate. We did tweak the program slightly. Initially, I spent time with each of the facilitators visiting the crews on site to view the task. This allowed the workers, as the experts in undertaking the task, to explain to me what they were doing while demonstrating how the task was done. Once they understood that I was not there to tell them how they should be doing the task safely, but to seek their advice on how they thought that it should be done safely, they came forward with all of the answers. Some of the suggested control measures they told me had been put forward in the past, but nothing had ever happened. I assured them that this program was different and gave them my personal commitment that the PEforM facilitator would get back to them with an outcome for all of the options that they put forward. For example, our first win was with the roads and drainage bitumen crew. They use a compactor that weighs approximately 70 kilos to compact the bitumen when they fill a pothole. It was housed in a cradle under the tray of the bitumen truck. The only way to load the compactor was for one of the workers to manually lift it using 2 fingers hooked through a small bracket, and because of the tight space, then try to swing it into the cradle. The PEforM facilitator, Sean, was a member of this crew. He researched the possibility of having a hydraulic lifter installed. The crew were really overjoyed with the response from Sean, and the hydraulic lifter was installed shortly afterward. This followed with a request from the same crew to have a look at the tarpaulin and possibly fit it with a push button to automatically wind it on and off instead of physically having to turn the handle on the winder. A simple and easy fix. Before PEforM came along, they would have simply put up with this as a small inconvenience and not even brought it to the attention of their supervisor. But because Sean was there and was part of the work crew, it was easy. We already had a process in place for recording improvement notices into our risk management system. I didn't want to create a new process, so I've integrated the recording of PEforM information into what we already had. Control measures are entered into our risk management system as an action with a proposed date for completion. An automatic email is generated and sent to the work area coordinator to advise them that the task has been assessed, and the PEforM facilitator will soon be calling them to discuss the proposed improvements. The PEforM facilitators are allocated an appropriate time frame in the action, determined by what the improvement might be to allow them time to research and investigate. The coordinators are fully supportive of the program, and I've even had comments from them like, "Why has no one ever told me before that this was a problem?" And I am so much more aware of what the workers face on a day-to-day basis thanks to this program. The lines of communication have really opened. One PEforM facilitator commented that he said good morning to his coordinator every morning, but really didn't know how to strike up a conversation with him. They've sure got a lot to talk about now. The PEforM program has allowed these relationships to develop and has further enhanced and improved our safety culture. So just to further elaborate, I've used our existing incident database rather than introduce a new process or buy new software. Some of you may be familiar with MyOsh and the action module. So once a task is identified by either observation, a worker raising a concern, an incident or near miss, or an audit, etc., I'll raise an action in MyOsh for the PEforM facilitator to conduct the PEforM risk assessment on the task. I will usually give them 1 month to do this. The action module allows me to allocate them as the responsible person and their manager or line manager as the accountable person. They both will receive an automatically generated email immediately and then again 1 week prior to the due date if no action has been taken. If the action becomes overdue, the email will automatically escalate to the director. The managers generally make sure that this doesn't happen. Once the tasks have been assessed, the PEforM facilitator will note the proposed control measures on the bottom of the risk assessment and then send it back to me. I will close that action and raise a new action for the control measures and allocate appropriate timeframes. This might involve a 3-month trial of a new piece of equipment. It might be a change to a process, but a period of consultation with key stakeholders might be required. It might be researching new tools that have come onto the market. It could be an update to a procedure. But not all proposed control measures are adopted, and if they are not, a record of why is attached to the action, which also must include the communication back to the work group with the reasons why. Here's a look at some of the photographs. This is a picture of the worker lifting the 70-kilo compactor using just 2 fingers. Certainly an accident waiting to happen. This is a photograph of the bitumen truck now showing the hydraulic lifter. The worker simply slides the compactor onto the lowered plate, presses the button, and the lifter does all of the work. These pictures show the mechanical concrete screed, which weighs 15 kilograms. The arms at the side simply slide up for storage on the work vehicle. Look at the awkward posture of the worker bending over to screed in the top corner. Such a difference this one has made. This picture shows the side panel of the Parks and Landscape crew truck. The toolbox is located at the front of the tray. It is accessed up to 10 times a day as the crews move around to different jobs. Previously, the whole side panel needed to be lowered and lifted each time the worker needed to get to his tools. This was such an easy fix. Simply split the side panel so only the small section covering the toolbox needs to be opened and closed. Here's a picture of the finished product. These pictures show the Aqua harvester operator seated in the vessel. The Aqua harvester is used to harvest excess weed or algae bloom from our lakes and waterways within the city. This seat now provides the operator with suspension to reduce whole body vibration, adjustable lumbar support, backrest angle adjustment. It's made a huge difference. The Molendina rubbish bin flaps. These cover the large industrial bins that fit onto the back of the semi-trailer. Previously, these flaps were the length of 2 of the flaps that you can see now in this photo and were made of really heavy steel. These have now been reduced to half the size and made of a lighter alloy. Again, this one was an easy fix. The city cleaning public area cleaning crews visit each of the toilet blocks in the parks around the Gold Coast and also the barbecue areas. The photo shows the fit out of their vehicle with a shelf installed at the back to hold the chemicals that they use daily to clean the facilities. The shelf has raised the 20-kilogram drums up. They have a tap at the bottom allowing the workers to decant to smaller bottles to use when cleaning. Prior to the PEforM assessment, the drums were having to be dragged from the back of the truck over other equipment to the edge of the tray to fill the smaller bottles. This has completely eliminated the need to drag the drums. When they need to be replaced, they are simply loaded at the depot by trolley and then moved to the vehicle with one simple slide into the tray. It probably costs around $3,000 to do this type of fit out to the vehicle. The town bin replacement. This has been one of our biggest wins. The smaller 60 to 80 litre bins pictured at the top of the slide hold approximately 60 to 80 kilograms of rubbish. These needed to be emptied up to 4 times a day during busy periods. The internal insert would need to be manually lifted out and emptied into a larger 240 litre wheelie bin. This task presented several problems, not just the manual handling aspect. As mentioned, the bins needed to be emptied regularly during busy times, usually during school holiday season, which meant that the parks were full of families, so there were usually no parking spaces close by in which to park the rubbish truck. This could lead to a level of frustration for the truck driver trying to find a park up to 4 times a day. The wheelie bins also would need to be dragged or pushed further to the truck. The worker need to be very mindful of the activities of the park users, especially the movement of young children. The answer was to replace the town bins with the larger 240 litre bins, which only needed to be emptied once a day and could be wheeled to the truck, hydraulically lifted and emptied. There's a photograph at the bottom of the slide showing that housing. This has improved efficiency and, when carried out early in the morning, eliminated the parking issues as well as minimising the interactions with the park users. This one's been such a big win for us. During 2012 alone, direct costs for manual handling injuries to city cleaning workers amounted to $260,000, with 628 days lost, to almost half at 134,000 and 273 days lost in 2014. To the end of June this year, so far, again, we've seen an outstanding improvement, with the cost of claims being just over 18,000 and 25 days lost. So far, we've replaced 65 bins at a cost of $1,500 each, totaling $97,500. If our claims costs were to stay the same as before PEforM was implemented, we can say that we've saved $368,000 in workers' compensation payments. This means we are already ahead by over $270,000 just on this one project. Council has changed the city development rules to exclude the planting of hedges when new estates are established, and also introduced a hedge removal program. If a worker identifies a hedge that they believe is putting them at risk of an injury, they report it to the asset owner and request removal. The city development rules have also prohibited the installation of the small town bins from any new upgrades, for example, shopping malls or streetscape upgrades. The discussion with our town planners came about as a result of the PEforM survey and the comparison with our past incident data. Once it was highlighted that these tasks were a cause of concern, meaningful discussion ensued, and the end result was a win-win for all. We've also fitted lifting cranes to our trucks that pick up illegally dumped rubbish, broken concrete, heavy generators and equipment, etc. And where possible, lightweight battery-operated hand tools are used instead of heavier petrol-operated models. We are currently trialling the use of an electric wheelbarrow within our roads and drainage section. These are not meant for everyday use, but will be used for jobs that might involve having to wheel heavy items such as concrete up and down an embankment or over uneven terrain, as it has a throttle and brake system. During the trial, it has also proved successful for use when cleaning out a drain of silt and debris that is only accessed by an easement between 2 houses, too small to fit a vehicle or a machine. It has also been used to barrow 8 to 10 loads of wet concrete, again when accessed by a concrete truck or boom is not possible. The city cleaning staff are currently compiling a list of toilet facilities that have taps located at or below 30 centimetres, with a view to having them lifted to 90 centimetres to eliminate the need for them to bend or squat to connect a hose. On a normal day, they would visit up to 12 toilet blocks.
Sharon, can I just interrupt you there?
Yes.
Can I just ask you, how does the electronic wheelbarrow work? Because I have a partner who's a carpenter, and I'm sure he would be very interested in this little gadget. So how does it work? Is it by remote, or what are the mechanics of it?
No, actually it's the handles are similar to that of a motorbike, where it has a throttle and a brake system. So obviously in the pictures shown there, they're going down an incline with the wheelbarrow loaded, so they can simply turn the handle and apply the brakes as they go down so that their load is not getting away from them. And similarly, if they're going up an incline, they can use the throttle so that it self-propels and there's no need for them to actually push it themselves. Great. So we've had some quick wins early on which the workers saw. This assisted greatly with gaining their confidence in the program. As you can see, they relate to improved culture, worker ownership, and the proactive identification of risks. This is really important. We're actually improving the identifications of the risk so that no one is being injured, which is really important to us to get on top of it before we injure someone and receive a claim. So the statistics, the all-important statistics. As the PEforM facilitators commenced the risk assessments in 2013, July of 2013, we didn't expect to see immediate results, so I started measuring from July 2014. And the results to date have just been amazing. So here's a look at our body stressing claims, cost of claims and number of claims. So the first bar is the quarter 3 of 2014. So for example, July, August and September, with over $280,000 in workers' compensation paid to date and 16 claims for body stressing. The last bar is the same period this year with less than $20,000 paid out and only 1 claim. It is important to note, though, that there may still be tail claims that are yet to be lodged, so this figure will probably increase, but most definitely will not reach the heady heights that we had for the same period last year. The days lost, again comparing the same period last year to this year, we've gone from around 650 days lost to 8 days lost for body stressing. Simply amazing. Strains and soft tissue injuries, again the same story. An amazing decrease in the number of claims and also costs there as well. And again, the number of days lost has been falling significantly since the introduction of the PEforM program. As a whole, I would say that it is not just the risk assessing of the tasks using the PEforM tool that has given us these amazing results, but it's been the whole improvement in communication, risk awareness at all levels, and the complete safety culture improvement. And this has all been brought about through the PEforM program. So thank you for listening to me talk. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for that insight. And I think it's really valuable to have a practical example of these types of initiatives and the impact it can have for an organisation. I guess with these types of schemes and initiatives, cost is always a huge variable for staff themselves wanting to escalate these issues up to actually advocate to have something, purchased that would actually improve the way in which they work, and also for employers as well. The bottom dollar is always a huge impact in their decision making. Did you find when implementing these initiatives, how did you pitch these initiatives to management to sort of get them on board? What difficulties did you experience with trying to get them to actually see that as a good investment to make for their workers?
As I As I mentioned during the first part of the PowerPoint, my manager was really on board with this program. We saw it as something that was really useful and really beneficial. So he was very supportive from the start. And as I mentioned, the hydraulic lifter on the compactor for the bitumen truck was our first win. It cost next to nothing to actually have this installed, and from there it just snowballed from there. There were all of these simple things that cost next to nothing that came forward through this program that actually gave the workers the opportunity to highlight all of these simple, low-cost, easy things that made their life easy and improved processes. It just eliminated all of these issues with hardly any cost outlay. So when it came time to actually spend a bit of money, it wasn't a problem. We'd already seen the benefits of the program and the reduction in our workers' compensation claims and cost of claims. So, you know, our bin replacement program cost nearly $100,000, but because of the wins we'd already had, no one blinked an eyebrow. It was just amazing.
Another question I have, I guess, is that your guys are obviously incredibly motivated in terms of pushing this program out in their roles as PEforM facilitators. Did you have a group of staff that were already sort of actively engaged in safety and actively engaged in improvements, or did you have to sort of co-opt staff and sort of taking on these roles more actively? And, you know, what were the challenges with getting these guys into these sort of positions?
Our PEforM facilitators were chosen from the field, or not so much chosen, but elected, put their hand up to be PEforM facilitators. We put out some information about what was involved in becoming a PEforM facilitators. They weren't generally people that might have been on our safety committee or health and safety reps. They were just people interested in making a difference and, you know, were mostly people from different crews. They weren't people in leadership positions. They weren't supervisors or, you know, coordinators. They were part of the work crew, and they were just interested. I suppose for some of them, they had answers to issues already, but just didn't know how to put them forward and have someone listen. So this was the opportunity for them to actually be able to speak to someone and get something done.
Thank you for that. I think it's a good example of how these types of programs give them an actual platform to have a voice and actually seeing the effects of putting something positive forward and actually seeing it happen and actually come to fruition, which is great. We've just had another good question come through that says, these look like great examples of improvements in the workplace. Is there any other means for your council to share these ideas with other councils, and who can possibly encounter the same challenges? Who would possibly encounter the same challenges?
So much of what we do in maintenance branch is very manual, as I've shown in some of the photographs and describe, but I can't see why anyone in construction or maintenance, for instance, our roads and drainage crews, there would be people all across Australia carrying out exactly the same task in other councils, but not just in councils, private business as well. I can see so much benefit in this program for so many different organisations. It's, you know, it's just been phenomenal for us, the improvements that it's made. But like I mentioned, and I'd like to emphasise, it's not just the risk assessing of those tasks, it's the improvement in the whole culture. It's the opening up of the lines of communication. And as I mentioned, some of our line managers and coordinators didn't know about some of these things that were causing the workers concern. Now they've got that forum to be able to discuss these things. And sometimes it's just informal. The PEforM facilitator might not have actually received an action from me to undertake a risk assessment of a task. He might just bump into that coordinator in the depot, for instance, and have a discussion, and they're able to sort it out there and then.
Thank you. There's a lot of questions coming through. I guess still interested in how to motivate and how to recruit PEforM facilitators. So I guess, how many facilitators did you start off with, and are there any particular incentives attached to this type of role to sort of keep them engaged, keep them motivated, or are these people with intrinsic safety sort of motivations themselves?
As I mentioned, we've got about 580 staff, 500 out in the field. We started with 7 PEforM facilitators, and at the time of selecting the PEforM facilitators, I did have a discussion with my manager about paying them something similar to a first aid allowance, but because we have so many people doing so many good things, not just with PEforM, but there are, you know, other projects underway where people are putting in time and effort, we didn't think it would be fair to actually pay these people and not pay all of these other people that were doing good things. So what we had decided to do is promote them at every opportunity that we could. Something that we have done each year since we began the PEforM program was to actually buy them a ticket to the WHSQ Safety Week breakfast every year. So every year the PEforM facilitators attend that breakfast as a thank you from the manager for all of the hard work that they've done during the year. We also don't miss an opportunity to put them forward for safety awards. We have monthly safety awards at work, so I'm always putting them forward for good things that they've done, and getting that formal recognition is really important for them because they are doing such a great job.
That's good to know. I think it's good that you've actually touched on food being a reward, because that's always a good motivator for people. So we've had a few more questions again about sharing this knowledge and sharing these innovative ideas. So are there any methods in how these are actually shared? Because a lot of people are indicating to us that, you know, broadcasting these quick wins within the council can get some of those people who may be a little bit more resistant or a bit old school in this is the way we've always done it, to get them on board with the initiative. So I know there is actually a PEforM network that is facilitated, and there's a meeting if anyone who's participating in today's session is interested. It's on the 26th of November, so it is a webinar and a face-to-face meeting in Brisbane, and you can register to attend that on the WorkSafe website. But just in your experience, how are these sorts of quick wins, how are the achievements sort of communicated and I guess broadcast to get others on board?
Within council, we have a PEforM network group that we meet bi-monthly. So our PEforM facilitators, as you can understand, the City of Gold Coast is quite a big city. So we have, for instance, our Parks and Landscape crew, where we'll have one crew that might be up at Coomera and a crew that's down at Tugun. So these guys don't usually get an opportunity to get together too often. So the PEforM network group that we've established allows them to come together to that meeting and share what they're doing with all of the other PEforM facilitators. So often our Parks and Landscape crew, for instance, the trial of the wheelbarrow that is being undertaken in our roads and drainage section, the Parks and Landscape crew are interested to see how that goes because they're moving mulch and soil using wheelbarrows. So they do get together bi-monthly and share that. Again, I mentioned the safety awards. So when we have a safety award winner, that is, they receive a trophy, and they are mentioned in our safety newsletter that goes out every year. So if someone wants some more information on the activity that they've assessed, they can get in touch with that PEforM facilitator and have a discussion with them. So we promote them at every opportunity and through any forum that we can within council, and share whatever ideas that we're able to come up with.
Excellent. Now, can you just explain the insurer relationship, I guess, within the council, in that you guys are a self-insurer? Because I think a lot of people are asking what was the perceived benefit or the outcomes recognised by the insurer. So can you just comment on sort of those types of things?
Yeah, council is self-insured, which we obviously need to follow the same rules as the WorkCover Queensland as the regulator. But really the benefit to us is just not injuring our workers. If we can stop anyone from being injured, that's what we want. It's more, you know, it's not so much about their workers' compensation statistics, it's more about making sure that our workers are safe and that they're assisted with anything that we can provide to them to make sure that they do go home safely.
Just in your experience, are you aware of any sort of similar network for sharing these ideas? Because we've had a few comments come through that Queensland is light years ahead, which I guess is incredible and is what we want to hear. But do you know of any other sort of network that people could tap in for innovative ideas like the PEforM program?
I'm always on Workplace Health and Safety Queensland's website looking at what's going on there and any connections that I can make to anything that's going on there. I find it a really wonderful, you know, website, easy to find information on most topics. I obviously, through my own network groups, have connections with other people in other areas, and we're always sharing information as well, and that's not just in Queensland but also in the other states of Australia. So informal network groups work just as well.
I've just got Nita Maynard here from Workplace Health and Safety Queensland. She's just also advised that there is a LinkedIn page for the PEforM program. If anyone is interested in sort of tapping into that, that's another great resource as well. We have had a flood of comments come through to say congratulations Gold Coast Council, a fantastic program. So I just want to pass that on to you. But I guess that probably will wrap up the end of our questions. So unless you had any other comments.
The only thing I'd like to say is if there's anybody out there that's not doing PEforM, get on board. It's just been wonderful. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating, and for all of you who have stayed on. It's great to have so many active people sort of throwing their questions at us. Again, Sharon, thank you so much. I think this has been an absolute brilliant webinar to show real-life example of the types of improvement that organisations can make in terms of safety. If anyone's question was not answered, we did have a few that we weren't able to get to, or if you have an afterthought, please email us at wcr.education@justice.qrd.gov.au and we'll work with Sharon to try and get those answered for you. Just to let you know, this is the conclusion of today's webinar, but there are also 2 more upcoming webinars for this virtual series. So on the 11th of November, Dr. Jodie Oakman, who's a senior lecturer at La Trobe University, will give an overview of the current research evidence relating to the causes of MSDs, including the impact of psychosocial hazards. It's a mouthful. The final webinar in the series will be held on the 17th of November with Juliet Maynard, the National Workplace Health and Safety and Injury Management Advisor. And Juliet will be focusing on the enablers for success for the CSR Limited Manual Handling Project. So registrations for both of these are open, so jump on our website to secure your spot. On behalf of the Workers' Compensation Regulator and Workplace Health and Safety Queensland, I'd like to thank you so much for participating in today's webinar. We are in the stages of planning our webinar series for 2016, so we're heavily reliant on what you guys tell us and what you actually need. So please spend the 2 minutes and we'll shoot you through to a survey now where you can tell us what you want, and hopefully we can work on that for the new year. So thanks again, Sharon, and bye for now.